Hi, everyone. This is Jackie Cooper with the GBA Talk Show, as well as Crypto Mom 2. And I want to welcome everyone to this episode and also remind you to like and subscribe because there are many wonderful conversations that are about to be shared. And I want to make sure that you don't miss any of the conversations. For those that are new to the GBA Talk Show, I'd like to share that you should definitely go visit the gbaglobal.org. We're an association that provides education and empowerment and advocacy for those that are in the blockchain. And there's a lot of great organizations who are our members. And I know in September, especially, we are hosting another event. This one is going to be about artificial intelligence. So there's going to be a lot of great conversation about what's going on in that field. For those that might not know me, my background is that I'm a lawyer, but I'm also an educator. And as an educator, I believe that it's our responsibility to make sure that everyone is informed within the blockchain space and those that are new to the blockchain space, because again, this technology and the use cases that are being applied definitely impact our lives in a very positive way, but we all have to be informed consumers. So today on the GBA Talk Show, I have a guest that has been with us before, and I want to welcome him to the show. How are you doing today?
Oh, great, great. Thanks for having us on.
Yeah, so I know your background is very diverse. So I would like you to kind of share a little bit more. We've had a number of conversations, and for those that might not have seen our first conversation, definitely go back into the feed so that way you can enjoy our chat. But why don't you go ahead and share a little bit about your background, how you kind of came associated with GBA and the blockchain. And then we're going to talk about a new project that you've created that actually is going to be very impactful. So I'm very excited about chatting with you about that.
Oh, first of all, for people who don't know me, my name is Lucius Gregory Meredith. My friends call me Greg. Uh, uh, Lucius is Latin for light. Greg is Middle French for vigilant, and Meredith is Welsh for watcher of the sea. So my handle on the internet is Lighthouse because what else could the vigilant light watcher of the sea be other than a lighthouse? Um,
It's awesome. It's awesome, especially because it ties into the next project that you're working on.
It's true. It's true. Yeah. So I've been working in the space of decentralized and distributed computing for a very long time,
Mhm.
since the late '80s. If you go to our website, which we'll show in just a minute, you'll see that the provenance of this technology actually goes back to then, where we at the first industrial research consortium in the U.S. MCC, we started a project called the Extensible Services Switch, and anticipating this was before the commercialization of the internet. We were anticipating the commercialization of the internet, and we felt that a decentralized solution harnessing the network computing power would be of considerable advantage, and prove that out in industry again, which we could talk about. Then I took the ideas to Microsoft, and we commercialized those with BizTalk process orchestration, and that had very large industry impact. And then I went on and took the ideas into blockchain, where we founded Archain Cooperative, and the Archain network was running continuously 24/7 for 2 years. And now I've taken everything that I've learned from Archain and have developed Firefly.io.
So why
So
don't you go ahead and show Firefly, because we're going to be talking about that right now.
absolutely. Part of the reason we chose the metaphor of fireflies is that we believe that the sort of decentralized synchronization and coordination that is manifest in fireflies is much like what needs to happen as we move forward into this new phase of human society. So, what I like to say is, it's not just a single flash of insight, but another and another until billions of them, literally, manifesting in the hearts and minds of people all over the planet, kind of illuminate the way forward. So that's
I definitely love the visual, especially because if you think about it as light, and a point of light, and then all of a sudden it becomes collective. So it's definitely what you're working towards and working on. So sorry, I interrupted you.
No. That's that is exactly right. It's this collectivity that is what needs to happen, and what we're providing is a small piece of technology that makes that possible. If you don't mind, I'll just dive into sort
Yeah,
of.
please do. Please do. So we see for those that are on the audio side, definitely hop over to the YouTube side so that way you can check out the platform. Also, within the blog will be embedded the link so you can also reach out and check out the advantages and the features. But for those that are on the audio side, we are now on the feature advantage and benefits side. And go ahead and share more.
Yeah, we've developed a Web3 platform that is actually genuinely scalable. So if someone is giving you a single number, like we get 30,000 transactions per second, that's not scalability. What scalability is and has been for at least 50 years in software development is when you add hardware, the system gets better, gets more performant, supports more throughput. And so we support about 1,000 transactions per second per node per CPU. And what that does is it makes network planning a reality. So if your community needs 10,000 transactions per second out of your network, then you just launch a network that has at least 10 nodes, and each node has to have at least 10 CPUs. On the other hand, if your community needs 100,000 transactions per second, then you launch a network of at least 100 nodes, and each of those nodes has to have at least 100 CPUs. And with this kind of scalability, then we can store data directly on chain. So at the very beginning of testnet 0 for this technology, we demonstrated being able to store audio directly on chain. As of last year, we demonstrated storing video on chain and delivering it up in real time. Part of what makes it possible to have this scaling is also what makes it possible to search. So if you're going to store something somewhere, you need to be able to find it again. I mean, that's what the database community has been telling us for a very, very long time. But search also is what created the global economy. So if you think about it, when ordinary citizens could, with a few clicks on mobile devices or laptops or desktops, find, jobs or employees or reviews or analysis, whatever, right? That's what created the global economy. And so a lot of the Web3 architectures take us a step backwards from that, right? So if you're storing on, like if you look at the OpenSea architecture where they store the actual assets on IPFS, well, that's not searchable, and they store it, and that is behind Ethereum, which is also not searchable. That's a big step backwards from what has actually created the global economy. On the other hand, Rolang, which is the smart contracting language and execution mechanism that gives us our scalability, is a transactional query language. So you can query the data that you have distributed out over your network. But it also has these other features because scalability isn't just about throughput, right? I'm sure we've all heard the term garbage in, garbage out. Like if you're really fast, but what you're doing is garbage, then you're just piling up garbage faster. And what do we mean by garbage? Well, if your network is leaking information or is processing unauthorized transactions, then that's not a secure network, and it's not the right sort of thing to be trying to put into mission critical situations like supply chain or even the financial system. So Rolang's spatial behavioral types allow us to catch these behaviors long before the code is ever deployed to production. So those are the sorts of things that identify Firefly as unique. If you want to learn more about those points, there's some articles up on the website, and there's lots more where that came from. We just cherry picked. So some are things that we published like on the economic standard, where we talked about sharding and how that relates to the concept of small world networks. We've also talked to at Hacker Noon about why open source utility tokens legally cannot be considered securities, despite what the SEC might be saying.
We'll have to have a whole nother conversation about that.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Yes, for sure.
There's a bunch of math here as well. This paper here with the meta and operational semantics for Meta. This is something that we produced for our biggest client, at least currently. They're doing decentralized AI, and they need to scale that up. And so we're helping them scale up their decentralized AI solution. There's a lot more to that value prop, but go read the paper. If it's a little too heavy in terms of the math, come talk to us. We're more than happy to. We just gave a talk yesterday at the Federal Blockchain Working Group and kind of walked through that. So there's also will be a video up on that work. As I mentioned before, we kind of started off predicting the commercialization of the internet. We built the extensible services switch that then morphed into BizTalk process orchestration, which then morphed into the R-Chain network. And now we're on the 4th generation. So this is really important. This is not 1st generation technology. We're not making this up as we go. In quite the same way as maybe many other projects in the blockchain space. This has had a great deal of industry adoption. At MCC, we deployed applications for Eastman Chemical and Kodak and the Baby Bells. I personally built an ATM network management system for TSB and Sumitomo Bank. Using the technology. Likewise, the BizTalk generation of the technology has been deployed at the Centrabat, Seoul National University Hospital, QualCare, and a bunch of other companies. And R-Chain, as we mentioned, was in continuous operation for over 2 years. So this is not, first rodeo tech.
No, it's important because a lot of times when someone like myself, who's new to this technology, we don't have the history. And so it is important we know that it's been around for a while, but the evolution is something that we're learning as we go. So I appreciate your having this timeline on the platform.
Yeah, exactly. The leadership team right now consists of Ralph Banco, who has served 3 White House administrations. He's our general counsel. Jeff Turner, who was CTO of Exodus and is now project manager at Firefly, and then myself as president and CEO. We do hope that people will, contact us either over social media or send us email, and get involved with the project. A project of this magnitude, even though it's always a small group of thoughtful and committed citizens that change the world, a project of this magnitude definitely could use all the hands that we can muster.
So let me ask you a question for your vision and what the technology, who it can help. Who out there who's listening, who should consider this, and how should they think about applying this to their day-to-day operations? What kind of companies or businesses maybe who are not thinking about this should be thinking about this?
Yeah, so that's a great question. Usually what the sort of the indicator that our tech is a good fit is that the business crosses trust boundaries. So for example, if you think about logistics providers, even someone who's serving the general public like DHL or UPS, right? I mean, that first step out the door, the package goes from customers' hands to UPS. You're crossing a trust boundary, right? And then UPS has lots of subcontractors, and when it crosses to a subcontractor, it's crossing a trust boundary. And finally, when it gets from UPS to the other to its destination, that's also crossing a trust boundary. So that's a simple example. It turns out, for example, that the U.S. Marines also have lots of trust boundaries inside their own organization. And so many multinational corporations do have these cross trust boundary situations. But I think also another really important thing to think about is when is the monetization of different components of an ecosystem, best served. So let me use AI as an example, right? So in some ways, companies like OpenAI and other AI companies have done a Facebook on end users, in the sense that they've harvested a bunch of end user content. And the end users didn't really get to participate in the economic benefits. Right, and when that happens, it puts the creative class, the people who generate such important content like your own, they don't get compensated in the way that makes that as viable an effort. In the next generation, what we're going to see is that AI systems like large language models are going to be trained on data sets where, like Pfizer and Lilly and AstraZeneca, where those companies are a lot more savvy than the average, internet citizen, and they're not going to let their data go for free. And likewise, for OpenAI, it's a considerable outlay to run that network, right? When millions of people are hitting ChatGPT, the amount of compute resources to manage that network is non-trivial, and offering that up for free is not sustainable. It won't continue. And furthermore, we also see that there will be lots of different AI components and data sets that will need to be integrated. And so these integration points also should have some kind of monetization story. And so so what we see is that you can wrap up a data set or multiple data sets inside a network, a Firefly network. And then it becomes automatically tokenized, right? And so then if an LLM wants to train on that data set, that's fine. It's up there, but you got to pay the tokens. Likewise, if an LLM has been well trained and is at a point where it can offer value to a community, then wrap it up in a Firefly network and it becomes tokenized, right? Or if your company has done the integration work of bringing together several large language models and some SAT solvers and some other things into a sophisticated offering, wrap it up in a Firefly network, and then it becomes tokenized, right? And then now everybody wins. And in fact, you can deploy a new version of Web 2, right? So you could tokenize the whole advertising thing. So when people use your service, you say, well, if you're not willing to pay a subscription, we're going to give you sponsored content along with the answers to your queries. But maybe, you see more sponsored content than you're actually using the service. And so you earn tokens as well as see sponsored content. And so we believe that changes the adoption model dramatically. So I think those are some ways in which people could use the tech. Does that make sense?
It does. And my mind was thinking about different applications. So there's both the public as well as the private side. I mean, you have private companies that are going to have an interest in using this, and then the public side. So do you see that there's going to be a faster adoption from one side or the other?
Well, what I discovered, at least with the existing blockchain markets, is that most of those markets are still overrun by people who are interested in speculating on tokens.
Yeah.
Whereas I found that enterprise is much more savvy about what it means to have data on chain, what it means to wrap a valuable data set inside a tokenized network. I think also enterprise is much more savvy about what it means to wrap important APIs in a tokenized network. And by the way, that happened. That's been going on since long before there was blockchain, right? I mean, Google, Microsoft, Amazon, the New York Times, the Guardian, they've all been tokenizing their networks, right? Whenever you have a customer facing or an internet facing API, people will take advantage of that. They'll try to bring your service down with denial of service attacks. And so the standard approach to this has been to wrap them up in tokens. It's just that with the blockchain, and you can use cryptographic tokens, which have other uses as well. But you can go to Google right now, go to their developer page and get a token and you have to get that token if you're going to call one of their APIs.
So for those that might not be aware, how are you defining token?
Yeah, I mean, it's a so in the case of Google, it's really just a string that is generated, right? That you have to embed in your requests, and these tokens give you some number of calls against your network, and that turns out to be exactly the same thing that was Ethereum just took that idea up one notch, right? So you have so in this case, a token is going to be managed by the network, and it's a resource that is not copyable on the network and is shifted around by you. You're in control of a given resource like that if you have the private key that gives you access to the address where that token is registered. In that case, again, the token itself is really just a string, or it's a block of it's a block of information, and the control of the token has to do with whether or not you have the private key that'll get you to the address where that token is
Yeah,
current.
I mean, again, the concept, like you said, has been used in a variety of ways for many years, and it just, the packaging might have changed a little bit. So with Firefly and everything, if someone wanted to contact you, how do you onboard new clients, and what kind of questions do you are some of the are you asked that are consistent, that maybe they need to be thinking about when they approach you? And what size company do you think should approach you?
Fantastic questions. So the first question I ask is, does your business cross trust boundaries? If your business doesn't cross trust boundaries, then you really have to think hard about whether or not a blockchain technology is right for you. Because while Firefly technology definitely scales, because of the way we do fault tolerance, it's not going to compete with a highly tuned SQL database, right? I mean, we can definitely get very good transaction throughput, but it just won't compete with if you can make an assumption like all of our resources are wrapped behind a firewall, right? And so it doesn't make sense to use this kind of tech in that situation. However, if your business fundamentally crosses trust boundaries, like supply chain management or other kinds of things like that, then it totally makes sense to use a technology like Firefly. So I asked them that first. And like we said, in the case of wrapping up a valued data set, that's clearly crossing a trust boundary, right? Because you're offering up data to another company that might, be training an LLM against that data. So that's something to think about. In terms of size, we're working with startups. We're working with very large established agencies whose names I can't mention just yet.
That's okay. That's okay. Yeah.
But so we run the whole gamut. The main thing is, do you really need a decentralization as a part of your solution?
And how would they know that if they haven't, again, there might be, like you said, new companies coming into this space. How would they decide that this is something that they should be thinking about?
Yes. As I said, decentralization makes sense when you're crossing trust boundaries.
Trust boundaries.
The bottom
line. The bottom line is
that's
about
the bottom line. It's like, if you're crossing trust boundaries, but that is so broad, right? Healthcare crossing trust boundaries, right?
Yeah,
That's why there are HIPAA standards, right? It's if you think about it, most businesses are now global. Right?
Yes.
At least they would like to be.
Yes.
And if you're a global business, odds are somewhere in your business you're crossing a trust boundary.
So in answer to anyone who's listening, you need to contact him. Because again, from the perspective of at least getting a consult to see if the application makes sense, for at the time that you're looking at this. Like, and from the other perspective is that you're I want to say you're cutting edge, even though you have been doing this for a while. I mean, the whole team is a thought leader as to what's coming next. And so, for those that are within the GBA community, as well as those who are not in the GBA community, because again, I share this out on my various platform and networks. It's important for you to know what's coming and what's already here. So it's important to become informed as both consumers as well as providers. So definitely, I would say reach out and learn about Firefly, to see how it can be applied to what you're doing, or maybe, the timing might be now or the timing might be in the future. Any last minute thoughts that you want to share with everyone before we wrap up?
Well, first of all, again, I just want to thank you for inviting us on. It's
Yeah,
great
of course.
to reach out to your audience, and I think what the GBA is doing is important.
Yeah.
So, go GBA. But I also want to encourage people to to take as a wake up call what's happening on the East Coast in the United States. That's going to be happening more and more and more. And so if we're going to get through this, we're going to have to get through this by working together.
And for those that, again, remember that our conversation is going to be seen and heard throughout time. So you were talking about the air quality, or what?
That's exactly right. Yeah,
Yeah, exactly.
Whatever it is, June 10th, I think.
Yeah, exactly.
So on the 10th of June in 2023, the East Coast has been suffering several days of just terrible air quality.
Yeah.
And like the last 5 years or so, the West Coast has had to deal with that. And soon it's going to be a much more common phenomena, and that's just the beginning of a much wider range of things we're going to have to deal with. And we're only going to be able to get through this if we work together.
And I would agree. I mean, that's why, we are, even though we feel local, we are a global community. And even though we might act individually, we do need to think about the actions of each of us globally, because we do impact each other, even if we don't always see the impact. So with that, I want to again thank you so much for being on. I look forward to future conversations, especially since we definitely want to talk about non-security aspect of open source. But everyone, the links will be below so that way you can check out Firefly and reach out, to the team members to ask questions, because again, we're all about being informed consumers on so many different levels. So I definitely appreciate your being on. I want to remind everyone, as I always say at the end of all my conversations, be kind to yourself, be kind to others, because we are all so interconnected and we're just part of one world. So everyone, have a great day. Talk to you soon.